The massive mining ship Draconius Prime drifted helplessly through the asteroid field, its once proud engines now silent and cold. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows through the corridors where dragon families huddled together, their scaled faces etched with worry and fear. Kira pressed her small claws against the observation deck window, watching the distant stars that seemed so unreachable now. At 12 cycles old, she was barely past hatchling stage, but her golden eyes held wisdom beyond her years. Her mother, Selenara, stood behind her with shoulders slumped in defeat. "The council says we have maybe 3 days before life support fails completely," Selenara whispered, her voice carrying the weight of their entire clan's fate. "The repair crews have tried everything. The quantum drive matrix is completely fried." "What about the human settlement Doppler station?" Kira asked, pointing toward a faint light in the distance. "They have mechanics there, don't they?" Selenar's expression darkened. Dragons had always been the superior species in this sector of the galaxy. Their technology was thousands of years more advanced than the primitive human colonies that had only recently begun exploring space. The idea of asking humans for help was almost insulting. "Daughter, humans barely understand their own crude fusion drives. How could they possibly comprehend dragon quantum technology? Their entire civilization is built on metal and combustion. They read ... primitive." But Kira had been studying human behavior during their trade visits to Kepler Station. While other dragons saw crude welders and noisy machinery, she noticed something else. Human mechanics didn't just follow protocols like dragons did. They improvised. They adapted. They found solutions that shouldn't work but somehow did. "Remember when Captain Harlan fixed the water recycler on the trade ship?" Kira said. "The dragon engineers said it was impossible to repair without replacing the entire quantum filtration array. But he just made it work with spare parts and some kind of human creativity." "That was different," Selenara replied, though her voice lacked conviction. "That was simple mechanical work, not quantum matrix engineering." The ship shuddered suddenly, and the lights flickered. Emergency alarms began wailing throughout the vessel as another critical system failed. Through the intercom, Captain Draconis's voice echoed with barely controlled panic. "All citizens report to emergency stations. We have lost primary life support in sections 7 through 12. Engineering estimates 18 hours until complete atmospheric failure." Kira watched her mother's face crumble as the reality hit them. 18 hours wasn't enough time for a rescue ship to reach them from the nearest dragon world. They were too far from civilization, too deep in the mining territories where only the most desperate ventures operated. But Kepler Station was only 6 hours away. "Don't cry." "Mother," Kira said softly, placing her small claw in Selenara's larger one. "Perhaps that human will assist us." She was thinking of Chief Engineer Marcus Webb, a gruff human with permanently stained coveralls and hands that seemed to understand machinery at a level that defied logic. She had watched him work during their visits to the station, seen him coax broken equipment back to life with methods that made dragon engineers shake their heads in confusion. "Which human?" Selenara asked, wiping tears from her eyes. "The mechanic with the gray hair. The one who always smells like engine coolant and talks to machines like they're people. Marcus Webb." Selenara had seen the human during trading negotiations. A rough, unrefined creature who interrupted formal diplomatic protocols to point out mechanical problems nobody else had noticed. The dragon delegation had found his behavior primitive and embarrassing. But his predictions about equipment failures had been disturbingly accurate. Even if a human could help, why would they? "We've never been particularly welcoming to their kind. The Council has made it clear that dragons are the dominant species in this sector." Kira had been thinking about this too. During their visits to Kepler Station, she had noticed something remarkable about humans. When dragon ships arrived for trade negotiations, the humans didn't bow or scrape like the other species did. They didn't seem intimidated by dragon size or technology. Instead, they offered refreshments, asked about their journey, and treated them like ... dickwals. "I think humans help because they want to, not because they have to," Kira said. Remember how they always ask about our health and our families? Even Captain Draconis says they're strange that way. Another shudder ran through the ship, and this time the emergency lighting dimmed noticeably. Time was running out faster than anyone had predicted. In the distance, Kepler Station's lights seemed to pulse like a beacon of hope. Selena Ra looked down at her daughter's determined face and made a decision that went against every instinct bred into her over centuries of dragon superiority. She activated her personal communicator and began composing a message that no dragon had ever sent before. Emergency transmission to Kepler Station? Chief Engineer Marcus Webb, this is Selenara of the mining vessel. Draconius Prime, our quantum drive matrix, has suffered catastrophic failure. We have approximately 18 hours of life support remaining. We are requesting assistance from human engineering personnel. The transmission sent out across space, carrying with it the hopes of 3,000 dragon souls and the unprecedented admission that perhaps the galaxy's most advanced species had something to learn from its newest members on Kepler Station. Marcus Webb was elbow-deep in a plasma conduit when the message arrived. When he heard the words, "Quantum Drive Matrix," his weathered face split into a grin that would have surprised every dragon who thought they knew what humans were capable of. "Janet," he called to his assistant, "fire up the workshop. We've got some real engineering to do." The message had been received, but the dragons didn't know yet that Marcus Webb had spent the last 15 years reverse engineering dragon technology in his spare time, driven by the same human curiosity that had led his species to the stars in the first place. They were about to discover that human ingenuity didn't stop at crude fusion drives. As the Draconius Prime continued its helpless drift through space, rescue was already being prepared by hands that understood both dragon technology and human innovation in ways that neither species had thought possible. The Kepler's Hammer was not an impressive ship by dragon standards. Built from scavenged parts and human determination, it looked more like a flying toolbox than a rescue vessel. But Chief Engineer Marcus Webb had designed every bolt and wire himself, and it could reach the Draconius Prime in under 5 hours. "You sure about this, Chief?" asked Janet Kim, his young assistant, as they loaded emergency supplies and a portable workshop into the cargo bay. Dragon quantum matrix technology is supposed to be impossible to understand without their neural interface. Implants, Marcus chuckled as he secured a case containing tools that most humans would consider primitive, but he knew were versatile beyond measure. That's what they tell everyone. But I've been trading with dragons for 15 years, and I've noticed something interesting. Their technology isn't magic. It just works on principles they don't bother explaining to anyone else. He pulled up holographic schematics on his tablet, showing detailed diagrams of dragon quantum drive systems that he had painstakingly reverse-engineered over the years. Every trade mission to Dragon Space had been an opportunity to observe, ask innocent questions, and piece together how their seemingly impossible technology actually functioned. "The dragons think in terms of predetermined solutions," Marcus explained as they launched toward the distressed mining ship. "Their engineering is perfect, but it's rigid. When something breaks in an unexpected way, they can only fix it by replacing entire systems because that's how their neural programming works. And humans? We improvise. We adapt. We fix things with whatever we have on hand because we've never had the luxury of perfect predetermined solutions." The journey to the Draconius Prime took 4 hours and 37 minutes. During the trip, Marcus studied the emergency transmission data that Selenara had included with her distress call. The quantum matrix hadn't just failed. It had suffered a cascade failure that had corrupted the navigation protocols and damaged the power distribution network. "This is actually fascinating," Marcus muttered as he analyzed the data. "They're trying to fix it like humans would repair a traditional engine, but quantum systems work backwards from classical physics. Instead of pushing energy through the system, they need to create a vacuum that pulls reality into alignment." Janet stared at him. "Chief, sometimes you scare me." "How do you know that?" "I listen when dragons talk to each other." They think humans are too primitive to understand their casual conversations about technology. But we're very good at learning from observation. When the Kepler's hammer approached the massive dragon mining ship, the size difference was startling. The Draconius Prime was nearly 2 kilometers long, its crystalline hull designed to channel quantum energies in ways that human ships could never match. But its beauty was marred by the dark sections where power had failed and the emergency lights that painted everything in harsh red. Kepler's hammer. "This is Captain Draconis of the Draconius Prime," came the formal transmission. "We appreciate your response to our distress call, but I must inform you that our quantum drive matrix is beyond the capabilities of human engineering. We request only that you assist with evacuation procedures." Marcus smiled as he guided his ship toward the Dragon vessel's docking port. "Captain Draconis, this is Chief Engineer Webb. With respect, sir. Why don't you let me take a look at your matrix before we start planning evacuations? I might surprise you." There was a long pause before the captain responded, and Marcus could almost hear the internal debate happening on the Dragon Bridge. Pride warring with desperation, and desperation slowly winning. "Very well, Engineer Webb, but please understand that quantum matrix technology requires years of study and neural interfacing to comprehend. I would not want you to risk injury attempting repairs beyond your understanding." "Understood, Captain. I'll be careful." The docking process was tense. Dragon docking ports weren't designed for human ships, but Marcus had studied their specifications during previous trade missions. He guided the Kepler's hammer into position with precision that impressed the Dragon crew monitoring from their bridge. When the airlock sealed and Marcus stepped aboard the Draconius Prime, he was greeted by Selenara and young Kira. The Dragon Mother towered over him, her golden scales dulled by stress and exhaustion. But it was the small dragon girl who stepped forward first. "Thank you for coming," Kira said in perfectly pronounced human standard. "I told my mother you would help us." Marcus knelt down to bring himself closer to the young dragon's eye level. "You're Selenara's daughter? You have good instincts, young lady. Sometimes the best solutions come from thinking outside traditional boundaries." Selenara looked surprised. Most humans were intimidated by dragon size and presence, but this gruff engineer spoke to them like equals. There was no fear in his manner, only professional interest and genuine concern for their situation. "Engineer Webb," Selenara said formally, "I must warn you that our quantum drive matrix has suffered complete cascade failure. Our best engineers estimate it would require 3 months in a fully equipped shipyard to repair." "Well," Marcus said, hefting his toolkit, "let's go see what we're dealing with. Sometimes the impossible just needs a different approach." As they walked through the dragon ship's corridors, Marcus noticed details that most humans would miss. The way the crystalline conduits carried energy in harmonic patterns, the subtle vibrations that indicated quantum field alignments, the architecture that was designed around dragon neural interface technology but could potentially be adapted for human manipulation. When they reached the engine room, Marcus whistled softly. The quantum drive matrix was a work of art, a crystal structure the size of a small building that channeled reality-bending forces through geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. And at its center, the cascade failure had created a crystalline cancer that was spreading through the entire system. "Beautiful engineering," Marcus said, pulling out instruments that looked primitive compared to dragon technology. "And I can see exactly what went wrong." Captain Draconis had followed them to the engine room, and his expression showed polite skepticism. "Engineer Webb, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but this damage represents a fundamental breakdown in quantum field coherence. Even our most advanced repair protocols cannot—" "Captain," Marcus interrupted gently, "you're trying to fix this like it's broken. But quantum systems don't break the same way classical systems do. This isn't damage. It's a pattern that's gotten stuck in the wrong configuration." He began setting up human-designed equipment that looked laughably crude next to the elegant dragon technology. But as the dragon crew watched in growing amazement, Marcus's instruments began displaying quantum field measurements with accuracy that matched their own. Sophisticated sensors. The Problem is that your standard repair procedures assume the matrix needs to be rebuilt from scratch. But quantum fields are like music. You don't need to rebuild a symphony when it goes off key. You just need to find the right frequency to bring it back into harmony. Selenara watched the human work with growing fascination. His hands moved over controls he shouldn't understand, making adjustments based on principles that dragon engineers learned only after years of neural conditioning. Yet somehow, this primitive creature was reading their quantum systems like an open book. How is this possible? She whispered to Kira. Her daughter smiled with the satisfaction of someone whose faith had been vindicated. I told you, Mother. Humans are different. They don't just follow rules. They understand the reasons behind the rules. Marcus looked up from his instruments with a grin that would have seemed impossible to anyone who thought they knew the limitations of human engineering. I think I can fix this, but I'm going to need about 6 hours and the help of someone who isn't afraid to try something that's never been done before. The Dragon crew exchanged glances. 6 hours to repair what their best engineers said was impossible, from a human using primitive tools and unconventional methods. But as the ship shuddered around them and the lights dimmed further, Captain Draconis realized they had nothing to lose and everything to gain from human ingenuity. 6 hours later, the impossible was happening in the engine room of the Draconius Prime. Marcus Webb stood before the quantum drive matrix, his human hands dancing across control interfaces while Janet Kim monitored field harmonics on equipment that shouldn't have been able to interface with dragon technology. But the most remarkable sight was young Kira, perched on a maintenance platform beside Marcus. Her natural dragon ability to sense quantum fields combining with human intuition to create something entirely new. There, Marcus said, making a final adjustment. Kira, can you feel that resonance shift in the tertiary field matrix? The young dragon closed her eyes, extending her consciousness into the quantum field in ways that humans couldn't naturally achieve. Yes, it's like the angry music is becoming peaceful again. That's exactly right, Marcus grinned. Janet, bring the harmonic amplifier online. We're going to sing this matrix back into tune. Captain Draconis watched from a respectful distance, his worldview fundamentally altered by what he had witnessed over the past 6 hours. The human engineer hadn't just understood their quantum technology. He had improved upon it. By combining human adaptability with dragon quantum sensitivity, they were creating repair techniques that neither species had thought possible. Selenara, the captain whispered to the young dragon's mother, your daughter may have saved us all. If you hadn't convinced us to call for human assistance. Selenara nodded, watching her daughter work alongside the human with natural ease. I was wrong about them. We all were. I thought humans were primitive because they use crude tools and simple methods. But they're not primitive. They're creative in ways we never learned to be. The quantum matrix began to sing. It started as a low harmonic that resonated through the ship's hull, but gradually built into something magnificent. The cascade failure that had been spreading like a disease was reversing itself, crystal formations healing as the quantum fields found their proper alignment. Marcus, Kira called excitedly, the song is getting stronger. But there's still a dark note in the 7th harmonic band. Marcus nodded, consulting readings that showed quantum fluctuations invisible to normal instruments. I see it. That's where the original failure started. We need to ... He paused, considering options that no dragon engineer would have thought to explore. Traditional repair doctrine said the damaged section needed to be completely replaced. But Marcus could see that the damage was really just a quantum pattern locked in the wrong configuration. Janet, remember that frequency modulation trick we used on the plasma conduits last month? The one that technically shouldn't work according to physics textbooks? You mean the one where you convinced electrons to behave backwards by playing them music? Janet asked with a grin. That's the one. Kira, I'm going to need you to extend your consciousness into the damaged section while I try something that's going to look completely crazy. The young dragon nodded eagerly. Over the past 6 hours, She had discovered that humans approached problems in ways that made perfect sense once you understood their perspective. Where dragons saw complex engineering challenges requiring predetermined solutions, humans saw puzzles to be solved through creativity and determination. Marcus began what could only be described as conducting an orchestra, made of quantum fields. Using instruments that combined human engineering with dragon quantum sensitivity, he guided the damaged matrix through a healing process that resembled music more than traditional repair work. "The frequency is shifting," Kira reported. Her consciousness merged with the quantum field. "The dark song it's becoming light. Marcus, you're making the damaged crystals remember how to be healthy." Throughout the ship, dragons felt the change as their vessel came back to life. Emergency lighting was replaced by the warm glow of normal operations. Life support systems hummed back to full capacity. The navigation array activated with precision that exceeded its original specifications, but the most remarkable change was in the quantum drive itself. As the matrix completed its healing process, it began operating at efficiency levels that surpassed anything in Dragon engineering records. "Engineer Webb," Captain Draconis said, his voice filled with wonder. "Our drive efficiency is reading 37% above normal parameters. How is this possible?" Marcus wiped grease from his hands with the satisfaction of a job well done. "When you fix something the same way it was built, you get the same limitations as the original design. But when you fix it using different principles, sometimes you accidentally improve it." "You mean this was accidental?" "The improvement was accidental. The repair was very much on purpose." As the Draconius Prime prepared to resume its journey home, the relationship between dragons and humans had fundamentally changed. Word of Marcus Webb's miraculous repair would spread throughout dragon space, challenging every assumption about human capabilities and dragon superiority. Young Kira found Marcus in the corridor preparing to return to his ship. "Will I see you again?" she asked. "I hope so," Marcus said, kneeling down to her level one more time. "You have a natural talent for quantum engineering that most dragons never develop. If you ever want to learn more about how things work from different perspectives, Kepler Station always welcomes curious minds." "I would like that very much," Kira said. "I want to learn how to see problems the way humans do." Selenara approached with Captain Draconis and several other senior dragons. "Engineer Webb, the Dragon Confederation owes you a debt that cannot be repaid. You have saved 3,000 lives and taught us that wisdom comes in many forms." "No debt necessary," Marcus replied. "This is what neighbors do for each other. Besides, I learned as much from your daughter as she did from me. Turns out human creativity and dragon quantum sensitivity work very well together." As the Kepler's hammer undocked and began its journey back to the human station, the dragons aboard the Draconius Prime found themselves looking at the universe with new eyes. The species they had dismissed as primitive had revealed depths of understanding that challenged everything they thought they knew about intelligence and capability. Captain Draconis composed a message to the Dragon High Council that would reshape interspecies relations throughout the sector. In it, he recommended immediate establishment of joint research programs with human engineers, acknowledging that their species had much to learn from human adaptability and creative problem-solving. But perhaps the most important change was in young Kira, who had discovered that the galaxy was far more interesting when different species shared their knowledge instead of hoarding it. She began studying human engineering principles alongside traditional dragon quantum theory, developing hybrid techniques that neither species had imagined possible years later. When Kira became the first dragon-human collaborative engineer, she would often tell the story of the day her suggestion to trust a human mechanic saved her people and opened the door to a new era of interspecies cooperation. And in the workshops of Kepler Station, Marcus Webb continued doing what humans do best, looking at impossible problems and finding solutions that work, regardless of whether they should be possible according to anyone else's rules. The quantum matrix of the Draconius Prime continued to operate at unprecedented efficiency. a testament to the power of combining dragon precision with human ingenuity. It became a symbol of what different species could accomplish when they approached challenges together, each contributing their unique strengths to create solutions greater than the sum of their parts. In the end, the young dragon girl had been right. Sometimes the best help comes from the most unexpected sources, and sometimes the greatest discoveries happen when you're brave enough to ask for assistance from someone who sees the world differently than you do. The stars themselves seemed brighter as two species began their journey toward a shared future, built on mutual respect, combined knowledge, and the understanding that intelligence comes in many forms, all of them valuable